How's everyone doing today? Our Holy Week devotion for Tuesday. I just wanted to kind of talk about some things that we had alluded to on Sunday. We had been talking about Palm Sunday, and we talked about Jesus coming as part of the procession of the lambs, and how in that he was identifying himself as the Lamb of God. And one of the things I talked about on Sunday is how the procession of the lamb, it had to happen at a certain point because according to the law and according to tradition, the lamb had to be in the home of the family that was going to sacrifice it, and it had to be a sacrifice of the heart. And so one of the things that would happen is that when the lamb was sacrificed for the Passover, for the Seder meal, the head of the household would come with the family, and they would take the lamb and put it on their shoulders, and they would walk up and ascend to the priest, and they would offer the lamb for sacrifice. And the priest would hold out his hand, but he wouldn't take the lamb. Instead, he would first ask, "Do you love your lamb?" Because remember, this had to be a sacrifice of the heart. And so the part of the thing that the family and the head of household had to do is they had to convince the priest that they did in fact love the lamb. This lamb was in their home, had become part of their family in the several days that it had lived in their home with it. The children would have played with it and babied it. And so this sacrifice meant something. And so if there was any question in the priest's mind, there are any of the kids that would snicker, or if the head of household really showed that he, in some way didn't convince the priest, showed him that no, this really doesn't matter to me. um, the priest would ask a second time, "Do you love your lamb?" And this was another chance for the head of household and that family to let the priest know, yes, we do love our lamb. And hopefully the priest would be convinced. If he was, he'd take the lamb. If he was on the first time, he'd take the lamb. But if he wasn't even this time, he would ask a third and final time, "Do you love your lamb?" That was the last chance the family had to convince him. And if they could not convince the priest that this was a love offering, this was an offering of something that they cherished, they would have to walk back down with the lamb being rejected. And so it was really important that the family did love the sheep, did love this lamb, and was able to communicate that. So 3 times the head of household would be asked, up to 3 times, I guess, "Do you love your lamb?" Now, where else does someone being asked 3 times if they love something show up? The story of Peter being restored. Remember, Peter denied Jesus 3 times. He denied he loved the lamb 3 times. So Jesus, when he was resurrected, he has a conversation with Peter. It's in John 21, starting at verse 15. This is what it says. When they had finished breakfast, Jesus said to Simon Peter, "Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these?" He said to him, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." He said to him, "Feed my lambs." And he said to him a second time, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" He said, "Yes, Lord, you know I love you." He said to him, "Tend my sheep." And he said to him a third time, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" Peter was grieved because he had said to him the third time, "Do you love me?" And he said to him, "Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you." Jesus said to him, "Feed my sheep. Truly I say to you, when you were young, you used to dress yourself and walk wherever you wanted, but when you are old, you will stretch out your hands, and another will dress you and carry you where you do not want to go." And he said this he said to show by what kind of death he was to glorify God. And after saying this, he said to him, "Follow me." Now, Peter had rejected Christ 3 times when Jesus needed him most. And so Jesus comes back, and in restoring him, he has a painful conversation that probably brought up a lot of that. The idea that he had to ask Peter, "Do you love me?" Now, in the English, love is love is love, but in the Greek text, Jesus asks, "Do you agape me? Do you love me with a self-giving love, a sacrificial love, a love that comes from God?" Now, Peter's response, he says, "Well, you know that I love you." In the Greek, it's, I phileo you. The idea that I have this brotherly love of camaraderie. It's not as much as the agape love. It's not as self-giving, but it's something. And so one of the things we may miss is Jesus asked, "Do you agape me?" And Peter said, I phileo you, which is less. He asked the second time, "Do you agape me?" And then Peter again says, I phileo you. But the third time, when Jesus asked the question, he sets his expectation lower. He said, "Peter, do you phileo me?" I wonder if part of the reason Peter was grieved was not just the third time that he was asked and it being reminded him of the 3 questions, or 3 times he denied Jesus, or maybe a connection to the 3 questions, "Do you love your lamb?" the priest would have asked, but because he realized Jesus had to stoop down and take his expectations lower to meet Peter. Do you love your lamb? Do you agape your lamb? Do you love Jesus? Today, I encourage you guys to think through that question as we are in Holy Week leading up to Christ's death and resurrection. Do we love Jesus? And do we really love Jesus? We might say it, but is it really believable when we say it when someone looks at our life? Because I think that is important. I hope you guys are having a good Easter week. You'll hear from me soon.